Another season goes by, and the Cleveland Cavaliers are once again at the bottom of the league. They actually had some reason to be excited going into last season. You have two young and talented guards in the backcourt, and a combination of Kevin Love and Andre Drummond in the front court. That should be enough talent to keep you from being one of the worst teams in the league. They even teased their fans when they went 3-0 to start the season off, and that third win was against the Philadelphia 76ers. But that hot start cooled off real quick, and they ended January with a 9-11 record. Having two former All-Star big men should keep this team stabilized and provide consistent production to keep this team in more games throughout the All-Star break. But Kevin Love and Andre Drummond were the biggest disappointments on this team. The Cavaliers got involved with the James Harden blockbuster deal and were able to come away with a promising young big man in Jarrett Allen. Head coach J.B. Bickerstaff eventually started playing Allen more than Drummond, and it got to a point where the Cavaliers sat Drummond as they looked for trade options. But you have to remember, the Cavaliers only really had to give a second-round pick just to get Drummond, so trying to get more than that to trade him away was just unrealistic. The Andre Drummond experiment for the Cavaliers was a complete failure. But Kevin Love is an even bigger disappointment. After LeBron James left in 2018, Love wanted to stay in Cleveland to keep the team relevant and bring great leadership to a team full of young players. Many people thought he was going to turn back into the Kevin Love of his Minnesota days, but nothing could have been farther from the truth. The Cavaliers gave Kevin Love a 4-year, $120 million contract extension in the summer of 2018. Since signing that deal, he has rarely been healthy, and when he actually gets on the court, he's not as nearly as impactful as his salary would suggest. He's been visibly frustrated with his teammates over the years. He will turn 33 before the start of next season, and with all the moves the Cavaliers have made in their front court, there really isn't a good spot for Kevin Love with this team anymore. Even though the Cavaliers keep denying it time and time again, there's only one option for this situation: a buyout. Just rip the band-aid off. The time has come for the owner and GM to bite the bullet and send Kevin Love on his way. It's almost a similar situation with Blake Griffin and the Pistons last season. Blake had 2 years left on his contract, making at least $30 million per, and it all worked out for both parties. The number one reason why Kevin Love is expendable is because of the Cavaliers' third overall pick this year, Evan Mobley, the perfect prospect for the Cavaliers. He's an unselfish, productive two-way player. He checks the boxing in nearly every category. He's a coach's dream. He will come into the league being a good defensive player with the potential to be one of the best defensive big men. He has all the makings of being a consistent jump shooter. He just got to keep working at it. Jarrett Allen was given a 5-year, $100 million contract to remain with the team, and him and Mobley would be an interesting combination in the front court. It may take some time for this duo to get comfortable playing with each other because both players have mostly played around the paint area. Mobley continuing to become consistent as a jump shooter could make this fit easier the more they play together. On defense, Mobley has the foot speed and agility to guard players on the perimeter. And also in the front court, you have last year's 5th overall pick, Isaac Okoro, who was projected as a possible lockdown defender. And in his rookie year, he showcased that defensive presence and accepted any challenge that was brought his way. He was NBA ready from the get-go. Okoro started all 67 games he played in and was often guarding the opposing team's top offensive player. Okoro led all rookies with 32 minutes per game, and he put up solid averages that led him to being named to the all-rookie second team. His offensive production grew throughout the year, and he ended the season on a hot streak, scoring double figures in 12 of his last 13 games, and scored a season-high 32 points against the Phoenix Suns. In those final 13 games, he averaged just under 16 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists a game. The front court will be the backbone of this defense and will have to cover for a lot of mistakes from the guards in the backcourt, specifically Colin Sexton and Darius Garland. Those two may have their problems defensively, but there's no doubt they improved their offensive games last season. Garland probably made the biggest jump and looked like a player worthy of being drafted in the top 5. Him improving his efficiency as an outside shooter was major for this offense. With Colin Sexton being more of a scorer inside the three-point line, and with the core not being consistent as a shooter just yet, Garland's outside shooting made it easier for every teammate around him. He became a legit pull-up threat, and he can only get better. Sexton shoots a good percentage from three, but he only attempts 2 3-pointers per game. Both Garland and Sexton came into the league more as a scorer, but if any one of them had the potential to be a good playmaker, it was Garland. He showed that talent in high school, but in college he looked for a shot more than he looked for his teammates. As the primary ball handler, Garland set the table offensively and showed that the game had slowed down for him. The Cavaliers scored 5 more points per 100 possessions with Garland on the floor. Sexton looked like he had a legit shot to make his first All-Star game in the first month of the season. His biggest moment last season is when he almost single-handedly took down the new Big Three of the Brooklyn Nets, one of the few games last season they all played in. Sexton dropped a career-high 42 points in an overtime thriller. This was the opportunity for the Cavaliers to send a message to the league that they will compete every night. But just like much of the season, the Cavaliers tease you with an impressive win and then will fall flat on their faces right after. The Cavaliers lost 14 of their next 16 games. Sexton was the 18th highest scoring player in the league as he averaged 24 points per game. This will be a big year for Colin Sexton because he will be a restricted free agent next summer. And not only does he need to put up good numbers, but the team needs to improve with actual wins for them to feel that Sexton is worth investing for the future. Another reason why Kevin Love really doesn't have a spot in the rotation is because of the newest acquisition, Lauri Markkanen. This addition came late in the offseason, and there were no reports about the Cavaliers being interested in the former Chicago Bull. It was a 3-team trade that had Markkanen signing with the Cavaliers on a 4-year, $67 million contract that also sent Larry Nance Jr. to the Portland Trail Blazers. With the Cavaliers re-signing Jarrett Allen to a $100 million contract, drafting Evan Mobley, and still having Kevin Love in his contract, this was kind of a weird trade for the Cavaliers in all honesty. I mean, Markkanen can be a great floor spacing big for the Cavaliers, and he could be a nice fit next to Mobley or Allen. But Markkanen has never been consistent in any role he has been in so far in his career. I could see Bickerstaff starting him at the power forward spot next to Allen, but eventually Evan Mobley will be the guy. And how will Markkanen deal with coming off the bench every night? This has a better chance to fail than succeed. Another player they added was Ricky Rubio. I don't really know how excited he can be playing for the Cavaliers, but if he's playing up to his abilities, he can help any team. But it always seems like he gets the short end of the stick lately in his career. The Utah Jazz traded him, and so did the Phoenix Suns. His 2 greatest strengths is the Cavaliers' 2 greatest weaknesses, defense and playmaking. Statistically, the Cavaliers were bottom 5 in offense and bottom 5 in defense. Even with the improvements of their young players, it's hard to see this team in a tough Eastern Conference make a major jump in the win column. Usually the rise of a rebuilding team is slow, and the improvements are steady, unless you add a great player to the roster, and that's certainly not the case with this team. The longer that Kevin Love is with this team and in the rotation, the greater chance of young players like Markkanen and Mobley getting frustrated for not getting the minutes they should. There are reasons why this mix of players could take some time to get adjusted to before they hit their stride. There are a lot of teams in the East that have better talent and better chemistry. It will be another tough year for the franchise in terms of wins and losses. I have the Cavaliers finishing in 13th place with a 24-58 record. I expect the Cavaliers to look spectacular on some nights, but as the season goes along, the other teams in the league will prove why they're the better team. The Cavaliers simply won't be consistent enough on a game-to-game basis to pull out of this struggle they have had since the greatest player in franchise history left in 2018.